And this word is so embedded in our minds now that when we say on, when we turn the light on, we get light. So that's exactly a heavier level of what I call the firmware. Firmware is the part of your mind that's already being programmed and installed before you even get to the level of learning language. The firmware can be sent to you through sigils, it can be sent to you through frequency, through light, things of that nature, while the software, as we call it, the program for your brain, at times, comes through the language. And that's also what was highlighted in the Code to the Matrix, was exactly how to pull apart the language, because the words were backwards. B-A-C-K-W-O-R-D-S, just as it says, the words were backwards. And that changes the direction of our brain. In addition to that, English as a language is not a harmonic language. It's actually Neo-Gothic Germanic language. And this language in itself, what did not resonate, basically when you speak an English word in the water, you don't see those symbols, while Sanskrit and Arabic, actually no, Sanskrit and Amharic, I don't know, I believe Arabic does the same thing, but Sanskrit and Amharic are the ancient languages. When you speak them into water, it forms a symbol inside the water. And so this is the power that right off the bat was removed from our particular generation, because if you notice in the beginning of the Bible, it says, in the beginning was the Word. Now they're very careful not to tell you what the Word is, because for those who continue to study will find out that everything is created through words. Worlds are actually created through words. Okay? And so, as it says, in the beginning was the Word. Now, there's another thing, because the Jews often talk about these words in their Judaism and in Kabbalah, but there's also another part of the Bible that everyone has failed to understand, which is the word Amen, which many people think is just Ra. It means Ra. But in fact, the word Amen just means hidden, meaning we're not telling you. In addition to that, it's an anagram for name. To further back up that they're not telling you, you got to have the name. It's just like an application where they say, put your name here. And so the whole interesting part of the Bible is that until you know the name, none of the prayers that you're praying for is going to come true. And so that's why they diverted now people to praying into Jesus' name. Because notice, Amen at first was the perfect ending for a prayer, meaning they didn't give you the name. And then when the New Testament came along, then they give you a name. They say, use this one. Use Zeus. So what we're really dealing with here is that it's very interesting to the people who practice Judaism. They think that Christians are a complete joke because the Christians have not yet told their members that they're worshiping a serpent god. And that anyone who believes in the God of the Bible, the Old Testament, understands that it goes by names like Shaddai, Sabaoth, and many other names that have that all too telltale. Some of these words are not spelled correctly, but all that telltale S. So it goes so far in explaining to anyone who's really researching this, to explain that they're dealing with serpent gods, that Metatron, who's supposed to be the great angel, actually calls himself the good serpent. So he's not shy in saying he's a serpent, he just says, I'm the good one. But because Metatron, Melchizedek, and everyone else in the Orion family are connected, because their father is Ormus. And Ormus was a serpent. And anyone that's connected to Ormus would, of course, have to be a serpent. So what you're dealing with here is you're dealing with, of course, there's more animals in the planet than the serpent. Serpent has chose to erect itself as king over everything. Some people say, well, how did that happen? People need to understand that when we first got to this planet, it was an animal planet. And on top of that, I'm erasing the board here, nothing was domesticated. If people look at the encyclopedias, what they'll see is a succession of us domesticating animals. Domesticate the camel, we had to domesticate the cow even. Imagine, the cow was not domestic. So what this means is that when the humanoid, as you know it, this particular edition, first entered into this planetary system, they were more than likely the invaders. It's highly likely that this planet was seeded as planets are, because when you look at the word planet, you get a few things. You get plant, you get plan ET, you get planned net. And each of these means something because, of course, the plant means something because it's like a power plant. And we're all generating this energy. And as it's shown in the matrix, this energy, our senses, our emotion, all these different things are being milked from us through our chakra centers. And we have to emit that into the galaxy. And there's a large system that's running that was mostly synergistic. But now it seems to be coming off balance. The vampire has entered into the picture. In addition, plan ET, because there were successions of beings or editions of this current human form. Now, the spirit itself is entirely different. It comes from the Most High. Gods are still trying to figure out how to make this. And there's things way above gods that themselves do not have the key to how to make a spirit from scratch. That's where the Most High keeps the control integer. But the thing is that for those who later on learn the knowledge, because if you notice, the Syrians are like your galactic weapons dealers. It's technology. They collect DNA. They collect abilities. They collect the ability to star travel. They collect rare elements across the galaxy. They put Moldavite into monoatomic substances and give it to other beings that live in other systems. So this is what you're talking about when you get involved with these type of beings. So the plan ET, as the word is just coming out from our good friend Dan Winter, that the whole thing with Akhenaten was that they had put a lot of money into them, for better lack of words, put a lot of technology into them. For those who've seen those Egyptian buffs can see the different shape of Akhenaten. In fact, when you're watching the Crystal Skull, you see that it seems that they're worshiping a bunch of Akhenatans. And what this obviously was is the merging of certain extraterrestrial races into one body and to bring out something of a super being. Dan Winter says that Akhenaten learned certain things and decided that he would break free from all this control, and he just left with the body and all the technology too. And he's running through time. This is part of the story from Dan Winter. We can kind of give a little bit more to that story because we understand that when the original beings were brought up to construct the pyramids, some say it was Nar-Hotep, it was a necromancer, and they brought these beings up from the underworld, which were larger in stature anyway. And what they were told to do is to build, to work off their karma, because they were already in the underworld. So notice, when someone keeps doing things not right, they descend. And they lose more and more senses, and then they end up someplace that they really don't want to be. I believe Earth is a few steps from that. So we have a heavy agenda right now to bring Earth's frequency up, or we're going to be looking in the face of what people see when they play around with too much Ouija board and all those different things. So what happens is that these structures that are built were serving multiple purposes, these pyramids, the ones in Egypt, saying all of them. One is that they were charging stations for the ships that remain cloaked on the top of them. Some say those ships are there now. Some say they're only there if you're looking in 4D. In addition to that, because of how these buildings these temples are positioned, they're actually on major ley lines. And one in particular leads into a hall called Amenti, where there's a crystal that controls a lot of what is going on here on this planet. So, what happened, they say, is that as these individuals were being constructed to build the pyramids, and of course they were allowing them to utilize technology of certain nature, they started discovering within the measurements of the pyramid exactly how to time travel themselves, because the pyramid is not a perfect triangle or a perfect what do you call it? Tetrahedron. Or it's not perfect. It's 51 by 51, and so each block had to be cut a different kind of way, and there were specific measurements to those.